Welcome to In the Moment with Kortia, where we inform, inspire, and motivate you to be a positive agent of change. Good morning, and it's Fire It Up Friday. Woo! All right now before the weekend, bringing it in. I tell you what, exciting how God's been moving on this week through the radio broadcast and how he's definitely been stripping all of those things away that have been trying to hold each and every one of us back from walking into the fullness of our destinies. And, on yesterday, we were actually talking about, 5 steps to overcoming disappointment. But before we get right back into the subject matter, hey, why don't you give us a call out and a big shout out with your questions or comments at the radio station at our local number, 318-484-2500, or toll free at 877-464-2500. with how God has actually helped you overcome some type of disappointment in your life. And then, of course, I just want to go ahead and say good morning to all of Central Louisiana and the surrounding areas. That's Natchitoches, Gina, Alexandria at 88.1 FM, Monroe, West Monroe on 98.9 FM, Shreveport, Greenwood on 92.5 FM, St. Joseph, Natchez, Mississippi on 99.3 FM, and Lake Charles on 100.1 FM. And definitely follow us throughout all of social media at In the Moment with Kortia Kuzan, and then definitely on our website and YouTube for the podcast at In the Moment with KortiaKuzan.com. All right, and we just had the dynamic Jennifer Kuzan step to the microphone this morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Awesome. And again, this is Fire It Up Friday, and we're going to close out with 5 steps for overcoming disappointment on today. And just to give you a quick recap on yesterday, we actually went into the first 3 of what we talked about, how to acknowledge how you feel about the situation, when you're in disappointment. Then, you take those times, for questions about your expectations, meaning did you set your expectations so high or so far out there that you really set yourself up for disappointment. But then on today, we're going to start it off, to pretty much bring it to a close as far as have you actually taken, time to learn from the experiences through your disappointment? And that's kind of big with a lot of us.
Yeah.
You may have gone through some type of disappointment in your life, and, okay, let's just throw it out there. Let's just get it out there. How many times have we gone through some kind of disappointment in our life, and one of the first things we do, why, Lord? Why, Lord? Why is this happening to me, Lord? Why God this and why God that, And it's almost like you can see almost the heavenly hosts with their violins up there. That's what's that song? Cry Me a River or something like that.
Yeah. Well, none of us want to have to go through anything.
That's
true. We want life to be easy. We don't want to have to deal with anything negative. We don't want to have to go through. We don't have to put forth work to anything. Mm-hmm. We want the lazy river, if you want to say it like that.
Now, what really just jumped out to me when you actually said that, it's like we have such a battle now, and you hear it even on the news now, they're saying it, to where you've got this whole entitlement thing that's just going across the country. Can't speak around the rest of the world, but I'm just going to say in this country, this whole big entitlement thing, okay?
Yes.
And then think about that now. It's so much so that there's an entitlement as far as in the spirit as well, as far as people should just say, hey, I'm a child of God. I'm going to just sit here and God just roll that beautiful bean footage and bring it all to me.
Well, we've become an instant generation. I mean, in the last couple of generations, I'll say from our generation down, we've become an instant generation, the microwave generation.
Right.
We want everything instant, fast. We don't want to have to go through anything. We don't want to have to learn from anything. We just want it now.
Exactly. And we can all say that we've been guilty of that, okay? We can all say it.
We have.
Like my wife, wife has said, I would definitely say taking note of it. She's right. Basically after our generation or the end parts of it, I'm going to even say 50% of our generation, as a matter of fact.
And I think it even spread into the generation ahead of us.
Yeah. I'm going to say that just because you get to this point in life, I'm going to say, to where you've done so much and you've worked so hard, you've tried so many things, and it seems like you've beat your head against the wall, okay? And God has given instruction, and you in your own mind think that you followed those instructions, to the letter, all right?
Right.
But then, just like I said, in your own mind,
exactly,
okay, you didn't. God gives you a word, and you say, "I got this," okay? And remember how I said that it's one thing for God to give you a word and you don't know how to do it. But then if God gives you a word and you've got the knowledge, the skills, the talents, and everything to do it,
and you're just too lazy to do it.
And look, it happens with so many, or you try to go ahead and do it in your own strength.
That's right.
And it's like you add time to the process, okay? And, with that, it brings up so much disappointment in an individual's life to where, we just basically just get there as far as like asking God, okay, God, what should I do? This is what I've learned, okay? And this is going to help somebody right now in their moment. If God, as you're progressing with him on this journey that you have, all right, this is really going to get you. What you haven't realized is that the more you grow in him, the more, I guess you want to say like a spiritual giant, as some people want to say that you get, which I don't ever really understand the spiritual giant part. But the more you grow with him, okay, the more you have to depend on him.
That's right.
And a lot of people don't get that.
Right.
Okay. It's all.
It doesn't become easier.
No, it does not become easier. No.
But you learn how to trust him more and more, so that not easier, but more consistent.
Exactly. It's like at first when you came up against the fire, you stood there and tried to stick your hand out to test and see how hot it was. But, now you can walk through the fire and know that God's with you. But look, we're going to jump right back on into this when we come back from break. And look, definitely stay right there in your moment. Welcome back to In the Moment with Kortia Kuzan on this Fire It Up Friday. And look, we rounding it out, talking about the final points on 5 steps to overcoming disappointment. And, before the break, and how we said the more you actually go through, different disappointments, the more you overcome different things, to where it's where you need God even more. And a lot of people would actually say, well, wow, if you've gone through so much and you've grown to such a level, I mean, shouldn't you not need God as much? Well, when you actually grow to the attacks and you become aware of the attacks, you become, more fortified and stronger against the attacks or whatever of the enemy, then what ends up happening? You become more of a what to the enemy? A threat, okay? So what? When a person becomes more of a threat, then he's going to have to really dig down deep to try to decide how he's going to actually stop that person. But, what really ends up happening is that every single tactic that came beforehand, whether it's disappointment, people saying different things about you, people trying to lay traps for you, because the enemy works through people the way God works through people, all right? The thing is that through that process of needing God is that even though we may actually, be aware of the attacks, the one great attack that so many people actually fall to in this realm of disappointment is that they get in this mindset of self, the way they get so sure about things to where they start thinking about they've overcome and going through things in their own strength. And that's one of his greatest tactics and greatest deceptions to where, how can I say that? One minister, I forgot what the minister actually, he said, and how that's why how God revelated to me that we need him more so when we're being blessed and when we're going through. He said, one of the greatest things I've ever seen Satan do to some of the people that were in my circle, he said, is that he actually, and the way he visualized this thing to me was this. He was just like, we're putting pressure on them this way, we're putting pressure on them that way, and they're like, nothing's working. We just can't stop them. Right. But then he said, wait a minute. It's like the devil just got this whole little idea. If we just pull back a little bit and stop trying to delay some of these blessings that are coming through, it's almost like a thing with Job, okay, to where the individual started getting within himself and everything, and then it got
pride
to where.
Sets in.
Yeah, pride. And what is that? It says in the Bible, pride comes what? Before the fall, okay? And so that's a tidbit for someone today, okay? You may be in your life right now, and it may seem like things are just going so easy, like things are on cruise control. And, why God brought that up, I'm not exactly sure, but you might think you're on cruise control. But don't get to this state of where you get to such a level of where you turn around and find yourself, well, how did our spiritual mother say? What's the message? Drifting. Where you find yourself all out in this desert place by yourself, where you think you're prospering, and you really aren't. Okay, and that could be a great disappointment that you'll actually have, because when we get to that phase, it's not just ourselves that it affects. Okay, it's going to affect those people that are really close to us, especially in the realm of families. But definitely taking time to actually learn from the experiences that you go through. And definitely when you're going through disappointments, you know, you need to take time to learn from those different things. I mean, what you definitely learn about your experience, okay? Learn about yourself through the experience.
That's
all right.
right.
And what do I mean by that? Okay. And God gave me this example before we even started the radio broadcast. It's basically like this, all right? If you're taking your car to the mechanic a lot of different times, but it's always the same problem that you're taking, you know, your car to the mechanic about, all right? We need to really search down deep why the same problem is always happening over and over with your vehicle. Well, just how I said, and how God has us on his vehicle, on his pathway, then guess what? If we're going through the same issue and it seems like over and over, guess what? God is really wanting you to actually analyze why you're going through these things, all right? He might have tried to put this big old neon sign in front of your face about, hey, look, this is about to happen again.
Well, you know, I like, taken from what you're talking about, I like the analogy that of the interstate.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you miss what God is trying to show you, you have to get off.
The off-ramp a lot.
Get off the off-ramp, go back around, and go back through it again until you learn the lesson.
That's it. Because it's very like pivotal for God to actually give you what you need, because you're not ever going to be able, and a lot of people keep saying, okay, how long, God? You say, when can I go to that next level? But it's tied directly into what we're talking about right now.
Right.
Because unless you've been prepared on the level previous, how are you going to be able to go up to a level higher? Because why? Like we say, the stakes increase. You know, the enemy's going to try more and more to hinder you. Because what are you doing? You're taking territory away from him, and the more territory you take away from him, it's the more influence that God is going to have of using you in whatever realm that, you know, he has you placed.
Right.
So, I mean, and definitely when you're going through and learning these experiences, I mean, what's your, like, perspective that you have about the different situations? I mean, are you going through every bout of disappointment? Okay, and I know this is going to be hard probably for some people to relate to, but are you going through every bout of disappointment to where it's something that's just beating you down to where you just have really, if I have disappointment in my life, I'm just going to be upset about it. I'm just going to be sad continuously about it.
Are you wallowing in it?
Yeah, are you wallowing in it? And I mean, and people might say, what do you mean by wallowing in it? I mean, it's almost in the natural, like a pig wallowing in slop. I mean, it really is.
Wow, it's a little early in the morning for
Look,
analogies
hey,
like that.
Got to go ahead and give it to them. Got to do something to spark it up, fire it up Friday, baby. They got to know. They can't be wallowing in this misery or this disappointment and everything in life. I mean, because what? They got too much greatness and potential locked away on the inside of them to get in that situation.
That's right.
And I mean, you can actually, through this process, like we said before, learn what your expectations were. I mean, what is it that a lot of times you hear all the time, whether it's TV, social media, speaking, hearing on the radio broadcast here, that a lot of people have dreams in their lives, okay? You've got dreams, okay, but do you have goals? I mean, meaning like a step-by-step plan to actually make this dream come about, okay? Because if you actually have dreams in your life and you don't actually have a systematic plan to actually get there or ask God to show you how to get there, then guess what? All you're doing is fantasizing. And a lot of people in this realm of disappointment, because, you know, they're up, Lord, when is my ship going to come in? And I've got this dream, and it's just so great. It's just so big on the inside. But what are you doing to bring about this dream? Okay, what are you actually doing? And who is it? Probably this is the plans. He said, like, you know, dream the impossible because it's possible and because it's doable. However he said it, something like that. And it's basically like the only things that we have within ourselves that we are not able to accomplish is because we put a label of impossibility on it because we haven't asked God to show us how it's doable. You know,
right?
And it's the same thing, like, you know, we've told the kids and everything before, and how it was like, I just don't see how to do this. And the response was, well, did you ask God how to do this? You know,
right?
Because I'm quick to tell you, if someone asks me, I have no idea. I have no idea how to do it. But then I always tell them, well, did you ask God how to do it? Because that's the source. That's where you need to get your info from. And it's the same way we are right now in this realm of going through possible disappointments and everything that we've actually had in our lives. And I mean, the things that we actually learn through this process, how is it actually going to change you? Okay, have you ever thought about when you're going through disappointments, how they can actually change you for the better. I mean, that's something that kind of might just stick out to people. I'm like, well, disappointment, how are you going to change, disappointments to actually get better? I mean, it kind of goes back to identifying that same thing that gets you into a disappointed state all the time.
That's right.
Or
looking through the process and seeing what went right and what went wrong,
right,
and trying again and changing what went wrong with a different process to see if it works.
Exactly. And I tell people, and we say it all the time, and people say it's people, we say a thing about, success and failure. But your failure, you fail at something when you don't use that experience to actually grow, okay, to go to that next level of what God actually has you. Because a lot of people, they have this one thing, okay, success is measured by, such and such. Failure is measured by, okay, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, didn't do this, so I just flat out fail. And there's so many different stories, and we did one show that compared different believers and different people in business that have failed numerous times, but they took what they, quote unquote, failed at.
Right.
They learned from those different lessons and they applied
success.
It. Exactly. And, it's not something that just happens overnight. Lord, we all want it to happen overnight.
We sure did. Can I get an amen?
We all want it to happen overnight, okay? But the thing is that P word that so many of us really don't want to hear is that we have to go through a process, okay? We have to go through a process. But, through that process of overcoming these 5 steps to disappointment, God's definitely tugging at your heartstrings right there in your moment. So, look, keep it inside of you, and we're going to get right back to you as we come back from break. Welcome back to In the Moment with Kortia Kuzan on this Fire It Up Friday. And look, part 2, and bringing to an end the 5 steps to overcoming disappointment. And hey, we're going on to our next step, step 4 for all of you that have actually been keeping count out there. We're going to take a personal inventory, okay? Look, up to this point, through the steps that we've been going through about, dealing with disappointment, when you start out with your disappointment and everything in the beginning, acknowledging, how you feel when you get to that certain level. And then, questioning the expectations and everything that you had. And we just came out of talking about, actually taking the time to learn from, those experiences of disappointment. So, and now, again, taking a personal inventory of the entire situation, okay, the entire episode that you've actually gone through. And pretty much at this stage, I mean, you should fully understand, the predicament, the expectations that actually led you to feeling disappointment. And it's basically like, okay, how my wife and I, we've been discussing, okay? It's almost like whether you either wrote it down or you took it mentally, whatever it is, there should be some kind of right now checklist that mental notes, as you want to say, that not only will help you possibly in your present situation if you're going through some disappointment, but you should also have some mental notes that are going to help you for possible future disappointments, okay, that may try to come up against you. And what that is that you may be able to right now identify a pattern that's actually been happening, all right, in your life. That pattern that's actually been stopping you from being that positive agent of change. That pattern right now to what God's revealing to you in your moment. Hey, look, this is the thing that's clogging up the flow of my full blessings going through you, okay? Because a lot of times, did you ever think about when you get into this like state of being in disappointment, okay? And how when you just focus on that, you focus on like the whole, the bad side or the negative side, the disappointments and everything of it, that you lose total sight of what God's trying to say to you, okay? You just can't see his plan, all right? And that's definitely one of the tactics that the enemy has to get you, your mind, your spirit, everything off of what God is trying to lead you, what he's trying to tell you, how he's trying to give you this vivid picture, in your imagination and craft it in your spirit. And, when you lose sight of that, then guess what? It's like all of a sudden, it's like driving in a car, and for whatever reason, you just hit the emergency brake, okay, for no reason. You just like stop, all right? And that's the whole point, to try to stop you from actually continuing forward into what God has actually called you. And I've seen some people that seem like they've actually been running well, and they're doing these things, and it just seemed like, what would you say, this out of the blue thing just happens, as you say.
Right.
And it just like, it really takes them for a loop because it's almost like they didn't think anything was ever going to happen.
Right.
And the thing that really and the thing that really comes with that is that, just like I told you, some of us get to a point to where it seems like we're going in cruise control or things are working for us just like so well to where we just get in our mindsets and in our spirits, hey, this thing is done. I mean, we don't have to be concerned about anything. But just like I said before, when you're in that phase of blessing, okay, when things are really happening in your life is when you really need to keep your eyes, on God the most, because that's when you what? You let your guard down, okay? You start looking at yourself. I mean, Satan can actually start doing little things to where you're on this pathway that God has you. And then here we go. We're going to put a very subtle little bump in the road, to get your alignment off, get that gradual alignment off in that vehicle that God has. And you know how it is. If
you sit there too long, you will end up in a place you don't want to be.
Right. Mm-hmm. Look, I'm not going to say it happens like with some people. It's happened with everyone. Everyone. If you're being very truthful with yourself, you will see that it actually has happened with, at least once in your life. Personally, myself, it's happened several times, but, at least once in your life. But the thing is that, I mean, are you actually taking that personal inventory to see exactly, okay, a personal inventory, some of those mental notes is actually a plan if you think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, really is. It's actually in disappointment that God has actually showed you or given you a plan or revealed a plan to you to show you how to stop getting in disappointment.
Yeah, he allows you to go through it so that you can see the steps and see what you can do to come out of it. We all go through it. If we wouldn't go through anything, we wouldn't have any way of talking to or ministering to other people.
Right.
If we don't go through anything, how can we talk to someone else about what they're going through?
And what's really, interesting about that, how my wife's talking about basically like your testimonies, okay? Going through taking this personal inventory when you're going through disappointment. Isn't it truly amazing, okay, that when you've gone through something, and it may have been something really, really hard, to where, you may have gotten out of that, and then you're going to this nice level phase, and then something else is coming up the road, but then God quickens in your spirit to go ahead and share what you recently came out of with another individual. And, just like so many of us, we've been praying to God about our situation and so focused on our situation. And then when God tells us to go do something that seems to have nothing to do with the situation that we're going in,
right?
When we minister to that person, not only do we get this like release spiritually, but in ministering to that person or giving a good word to that person, we get instructions in doing what he's called us to do.
That's right.
And, a lot of us will say, something? That's right. He does do that all the time. But it's about us not having, did you ever realize that God is purposely doing that to get your mind not to be focused on what you are quote unquote going through? All right. And it's almost like when he does that, it's like, well, at least with me, I'm not going to say with all of you, but at least with me, he brings up this track record of how he's had a track record with you and how, something comes up and then all of a sudden when you just say, okay, I'm not going to really focus on this track record of how he brought you out of this thing, out of that thing, out of this thing that really relates, to that. But, it goes to a personal inventory, and literally your personal inventory, it really does involve your track record with God, okay? It really does. Right. I mean, if you are not actually, no matter what state you're in right now, if you really are not looking back on the track record of what God has done in your life, oh, my Lord, you are really not utilizing something that's really important in your arsenal right now, okay? Definitely besides, the praise and thanksgiving, okay, the prayer, and, that track record and everything that you have with God. I mean, wow, okay? It's like, what can I say, track record? It's like you got on the armor of God, all right, as it's laid out in Ephesians and whatnot. And it's like, it's that little unseen little specialty type weapon that you really don't think that's there. It's like, I don't know, maybe that spike or something that's maybe something maybe on the shield, even though that's not in the Bible. So don't even say he's trying to amend the Bible or do whatever. I'm just saying, okay? But it's just like that extra little special something that the enemy wouldn't notice that God has as far as like in your arsenal, all right? And definitely when you're taking the inventory, you need to actually think about what you've actually gone through, how's it, like I said, how's it actually going to benefit you? What did you gain most out of that situation? Okay. How have you been able to take that moment, whatever that disappointment or whatever that situation is, and pretty much just take it apart? Okay, it's almost like
analyze it.
Analyze it. There you go. I was looking for the word. Thank you. Luke, help me on the microphone. But look at how you just go ahead and you just analyze it and see exactly what you can just take from that particular situation. You know, right now at this point in time, in this phase of so many of our lives, okay, I know I surrendered my life to the Lord in 2001. And there are a lot of things that at that point in time of when I first surrendered my life to the Lord to this point in time in my life, I should not be repeating on a consistent basis, okay? And some of you right now, God's telling you right now, look, just being real about it. Some of us have gone through a lot of disappointments because why? We keep wanting to just drink milk instead of eating meat, okay? And some of us right now, we just need to decide to grow up spiritually, but what? Even in that, God's still loving you. But look, when we come back from break, we're going to go ahead and wrap up and get right back into this. Stay in your moment. Welcome back to In the Moment with Kortia Kuzan. Fire it up Friday today. I know you're ready. You're driving into work. You got that cup of coffee. You got that spiritual blessing. You've already went and listened or viewed the Sin Life Spiritual Hour, and it led you right into the radio broadcast from In the Moment with Kortia Kuzan, and then definitely you're going to be tuned in for On Point Talk with Carlette Christmas. And look, we are talking about yet again on this final point, 5 steps to overcoming disappointment. And look, definitely right before we get into it, we're talking about taking that personal inventory. And it came to me as far as like when God's trying to tell you to take a personal inventory. Now, this is going to really touch you right where you are, okay? Really going to bring something to you in your moment. When you're taking personal inventory of the things that have actually happened to you, the things that you've actually gone through, and how you actually came through those things, God is wanting you to see the resourcefulness that's on the inside of you, okay? Because a lot of us don't realize the talents, the giftings, the abilities, that we actually have. And you know something? What's really interesting, you really don't see those things or you really don't tap into those things unless you are actually going through something, okay? And a lot of people will say, well, you know, why do I have to go through something to tap into those? Well, if we're being real with ourselves, when things are just like sunshine and clovers each and every day, are you really pushing yourself to the limit to grow as much as when you're actually going through something? Okay. Now, I really love it how, you know, one of our mentors, you know, and I was thinking about him this morning when I was getting ready, you know, before coming here. You know, he's up there heavenly, probably, you know, looking down, missing the breakfasts and everything we used to have. Pastor Lee Earl Rawls. That man in himself was creative, to say the least.
Yes, he was.
He was creative. Trust me when I tell you, I can tell you that I learned so many different ways to use duct tape that I didn't even think was possible in the natural. Okay, well, really, yeah, some great moments. That man, a guy, when I first started, went into nursing home ministry, street ministry, casting out devils, you know, all of those different things. You know, probably the first original mentor and everything we have, and definitely love, you know, family members and stuff that we had. But I tell you, it's like, it's awesome at how through watching and how God brought that back to me, as far as like about resourcefulness, okay, the things that actually came about. To actually be in a state of right now, how some of you, just like when I saw him, at times it seemed like you didn't have anything. It was just like you had nothing. But then through what looked like junk, just laying out, okay, and we're talking about a natural example right now, just looking out junk and how he was able to be resourceful and put things together to, you know, solve an issue. And that's how God is with some of us right now. We look at certain things that are happening in our life, okay, the disappointments, all right? And when we lay it out on this spiritual table, it looks like junk. A lot of us right now, we have our lives, and it really looks like it's junk to ourselves. But then God can just take, oh, look, I can take this piece right here, I can take this piece right there. But a lot of times we're like, well, Lord, what's the use of that piece? Oh, don't worry about it. I'm going to take this piece here and piece there. And then before it's done, you have something that's beautifully crafted or put together that actually, you know, is a great representation of who he is, but it shows you just how much you actually had on the inside of you. I mean, it really, really is awesome at how a lot of times we just don't realize what we actually have or what we've been blessed with on the inside of each and every one of us. We really don't take that personal inventory like God is actually showing us, and we really don't see how the resources that we have on the inside, and how it's something to be utilized to actually help another individual out, even when they're going through. Now, I'm sure a lot of you, just like with us, when we've gone through different things, ups, downs, whatever it may be, isn't it a lot of times that when you are apparently going through something, God still tells you to go ahead and do as far as like for another?
Yeah.
I mean, and God is, and I'm assuming one day we're going to learn, or God's going to really get this down in our brains to where God isn't moved by our emotional state, as you want to say. You got, and what's that old adage or whatever? Some people really don't know how they're blessed because they're whining and complaining to God that they don't have enough, but they still got a loaf of bread stuck under their arm or something like that. It's like,
I know what you're saying. I don't know the exact wording behind it, but yeah.
It's just that just because of the it falls into the realm of the degree of blessing that we have, okay, and how we really don't think just because it's not what we want at that particular point in time,
right?
We don't really see it as God moving, as far as like in our life. And we need to really, what are we actually gaining from like everything that we've gone through? Okay, what has God shown us about the individuals that we're connected with, the things that we're doing? I mean, all through this phase of how God's been telling you how to overcome disappointment, all right? I would really say, like I said, first partaker of this, as far as like with me, that when I'm going through any type of disappointment in my life, God was actually there to show me how, whether it was a job, okay, showing me exactly how it played into that, individuals, how they actually had their part in that, my mindset, what I was doing, family things, it just like things started highlighted. Some things I needed to be aware of, some things that may have needed to be changed, some things that may have needed to be changed about myself. But what? It goes all along this realm of taking inventory, okay? Really taking inventory and seeing those things that really need to be changed. And then, of course, why not think about through this, what problems have you actually learned or been taught that you can actually solve? I mean, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why not realize that you've gone through this? Okay, so now how am I able to take all of this and solve a problem? I mean, it may not be immediately, for you, but how can you solve the problem of another? And what tangible things or what facts have you gained, as you say, to what? That you need to actually work through. I mean, that's just like my wife said about that getting off the off-ramp, okay? And how until you actually go through this process of knowing exactly what it is you need to change, God's, and I'm saying God, and you may think it's the enemy, okay? God's going to keep having you get off this off-ramp.
That's right.
Until you get this process. And how I use the analogy with the car, he's going to have you get off this off-ramp. You're going to go to the garage to see if you can get this problem fixed. And then, when you actually allow God, which is the mechanic, to actually fix the issue, all right, the problem, which is the vehicle, which is you, then guess what? You're going to have to keep getting off, every step of the way. But look, on this final point, as far as like an inventory, we need to actually modify, our expectations and our objectives, okay? We've gone through this process. I mean, okay, we've had our expectations. We've had different objections that we've, had on the inside of us as far as like going through this process, all right, through this up and downs world. And, just like I said, God is not moved by our emotions or our emotional state, okay? But what God is really concerned about is our growth and the closeness and everything that we have with him, okay? Let this mind be in you, which is also in Christ Jesus, okay? Our mental state really needs to change through the process and everything that we have, and we need to actually lean and depend on God, all right? And the thing that's really paramount in all of this, okay, touching you right now as far as like in your moment, and how right now, as all of you under the sound of our voices, okay, that's been listening to the radio broadcast, we're really into this phase right now. And like I said, this pertains to us as well, to where we cannot keep using the things that we're going through in life as excuses. Because God is saying, something, not only do you have my word, but you have all of these broadcasts through the On Point Talk family to where, I'm equipping each and every one of you to go out there and be that positive agent of change. And I've also been talking to you as far as like how to utilize that seed of greatness that's on the inside of you. Tap into that blessing, okay?
Yes.
To really step on out in faith and do what God has actually called you to do. So look, on this Fire It Up Friday, what is it, what decision, what choice, okay? What are you going to decide right now? What are you going to do? Are you finally going to allow, as my wife had used, take this dirt and put it under your feet to go higher? Or are you going to actually keep using it to try to actually bury yourself in the grave with it? Are you actually going to rise up to the fullness of what God has called you to be, all right? Or are you actually going to just sit there in a mundane situation and just go haphazardly through life? So look, God's touched you today. He's touched us today. It's Fire It Up Friday. But look, we're going to close and take out, but we can come back on Monday, Motivational Monday. We're going to get right back with you. So take care. God bless, and we love you.